Well, good evening or good morning, and welcome to Partickhill Station. I'm Charlie. I thought I'd do a late night show just to see if there's anybody out there. You never know who you're going to reach in the world of model railways. I've been to Australia, been to New Zealand, been to South Africa, and I know there are British model railway enthusiasts in those three countries. And in fact, when I was in Melbourne, I went to Hearns Hobbies, just along from the station in downtown Melbourne. And they had quite a collection there, a really nice store. And I made a short video and posted it on my YouTube channel. And when we were in Napier in the North Island of New Zealand, I came across a model railway store club that was in that older part of the town with the white clapboard buildings and in a kind of pedestrian mall. And there was a freestanding advertisement thing that had a soldier painted on it and it said toy store upstairs. So we went up there, and sure enough, there were model railways up there. And it is a club, and supported by local members, and they had a number of different layouts there. So it was really interesting to see that, so far away, let's say. It was quite unexpected. And, since that time, I've realised that there are lots of model railway communities down there and in different places. Mark Hemmel Down, you are up late. Currently at work, but listening in. Good for you. So, I just thought I'd explore the late night show, because you never know who you're going to reach. There's lots of model railway enthusiasts everywhere. You just have to look, go to your local website in the area that you're visiting, and you'll come up with something. So today I had an interesting Zoom call with Tom Houston. Now, just grab this. For the benefit of Mark, I'll just switch this over to the single one here. This is the old Triang R965 controller. And, the history behind this, I'm sure you're aware, is John Chams 123 from John's Amazing Trains took one of these and modified it to what you see now. So I followed his instructions and I modified this one and a couple of others. And in a recent video, I proved that it works. So one of the issues that I had with one of these units was there's a diode on there, and it's identified as ZD2. Now that just might be Triang's identification code for the diode. And closer inspection found a code number 391. And we're just trying to find out what that 391 stands for. Because what I want to do is fix the one that diode had burnt out on and find a new one, stick it in there and test it with a multimeter, see what kind of reading I would get from that. And I don't know, well, in Mark's case, I don't know what your experience is with electronics, if you've done anything like that, with computers or printed circuit boards. It's tough getting your head around, but if you try and follow the logic of it, after reading up on it, you get the idea. It has to follow in a circuit. You've got to complete. Hey, Mystic, how you doing? Yeah, not your area of expertise. Mine neither. So, hey, Mystic, is that your name? You, George? I'll need to remember that if that's the case. So, yeah, it's not my expertise either. Yeah, I'm up late. Well, it's 10:45 p.m. and I just thought I'd explore the late show with Charlie and see who comes up, because, as you know, the schedule. Wait a minute. Who's John? I'm trying to see. Hey, Mark. I'm John. Okay, John. You're not George. Okay, John. That's good to know. Yeah, the schedule through the week is pretty busy, and it's always difficult to find a good time slot. And there are occasions where there are multiple guys in there. And I don't like to step on anybody's toes or take their space. So I always try and find a slot where I can't see anybody that's posting. And, the other thing is I like to try and do something a little bit different. Now, whether I'm doing something different or not, I am not sure. I might run some trains that are a little bit different from what you might see in other layouts. And I try to do different stuff in terms of DIY or how to do it and that type of thing, just to perk people's interests. And also, I guess, I'm trying to tweak the algorithm because it's a black hole out there, and you got to think about. My daughter was telling me all this. She's the expert. Okay, Dad, make sure that you get the correct title. Make sure that your thumbnail represents exactly what it is you're going to be doing. And in your description, make sure you have clarity in the description of what it is you're doing, and you're repeating what is on your thumbnail and your description. So therein endeth the lesson for the day. So, I'm trying to backtrack into. Just going to try this for a second. Yeah, that's not what I want. So I'm trying to backtrack into some of the older. Hey, Mark, that'd be outstanding. Yeah, that'd be really helpful because I want to try and get that done. And I've been searching and I haven't been able to find the right scale, size, and I don't know why I didn't get them included in the box when I bought the things. So yeah, that would be great. Anyway, back to what we were trying to accomplish, tweaking the black hole that is the algorithm, and we all kind of suffer from that. And the interesting thing, Mark, is since you started your new layout, you've skyrocketed in terms of the number of subs that you get, and that's the goal, is to get those subs. And whatever it is you're doing it right, and just keep doing it, because it obviously works for you, and the algorithm likes what you're doing. And you look at, well, there was some guys out there when I was on Barnabas Junction that had 200 or so subs. So I jumped in, checked it out, gave a sub, and thought, that's a nice layout, that's a nice channel. Why does the guy only have, a couple of hundred subs? Well, I never really inspected it to that end, but hopefully he'll, because some of us participated in it that way, hopefully other people will get the ball rolling, and the black hole, as we call it, will recognize that, hey, there's something going on at that train station. Let's go over there and have a look, and maybe we can do something to help out. So anyway, yeah, you've probably seen my Strathclyde Transport 2-car DMU from Ellis Clark. I was on their site, and oh, bingo, look at that. A Strathclyde Transport. I'd been looking around for this for the longest of times, because I've got the other SPT sitting back there. I'll get it out. The other 2-car DMU SPT for the Glasgow area, and it's a nice combination to have the two of them. But one thing that I would really love to get my hands on, and that's the Class 303. Now, there was never a model made of it, but there's a company out there in the UK that made a kit for it. Now, if you don't recall, or not familiar, the 303 was the electrical unit that was blue with a white top. Really nice livery. And when I lived in Knightswood, which is in the west end of Glasgow, there's a line that cuts right across the top side, the north side of the River Clyde. And at the time when I was living out there, it was still steam engines, but eventually it was changing to the electrical units, the 125 kilovolt power. And I remember seeing it, they were erecting the gantries, and eventually the train started running. Let's see who's on. High Hood GP30, never produced an N scale. I'm thinking about making one Frankenstein style. Yeah, well, if you've got the talent, why not? It's a bit of an undertaking to try and get well, I'm sure you can get all the engineering data, because there'd be all kinds of drawings out there. Then it's a case of, how are you going to make it? Are you going to try and 3D print it? Or are you going to scratch build it with plastic card, as some folk do? So anyway, there is a kit of this 303. And I searched for it, and it's out of stock, not really available anywhere. But I'm going to keep my eye out for it, because that would just be nice, and make this a very unique layout. So, but like everything else, there's a myriad of things that I need to do. One of them being the shuttle around here. And yeah, I think I showed you Circuitron. That's it, Circuitron. That's the name of the shuttle unit, automatic reverse circuit AR1. I was in Los Angeles, and there's a model railroad store there, and it's just sort of around the corner from, I wouldn't say it's a fashion area, but it's an area in Los Angeles where all the studios sell off all the props and clothes and all of that kind of stuff. Really interesting area. And this place was packed to the gunnels, as they would say, with all kinds of railroad of all scales. But of course, they had Zippo of double O. And that's where I bought that Circuitron AR1. The guy convinced me it would work no problem. So I have to get that installed. But when we were in Tampa, Florida, I went looking and found the two model railroad stores. And in one of them, I found an old Triang coach, and I think they wanted $30 for it. Oh, it's a bit pricey for me, $30. And they had a couple of other little bits and pieces, but you rarely find model railway British stuff in North American stores. Although recently in George's Trains here in the Toronto area, I picked up a couple of things. And I did see that there were some beautiful Pullman coaches. I think they were mint in the box, the highly detailed ones. And they might have wanted $45 or $50 for each of them. And as I say, boxed. And if somebody was looking for them, that might have been a deal. Anyway, let me get that SPT unit out. I'll just bring this one in. And, in the tail end of that, with the Queen Mother Class 47, that was the detailed or the weathered Blue Circle tanker. And that's the one I did. That's the one I did with the Micron pens. you know, I dabble a bit in the arts, and I think I've mentioned it. I post on um, Instagram as Charlie McGowan 1104. So I've got quite a few of these micron pens, and I saw a guy demonstrate it, and I thought, well, yeah, I can do that. So that's what I did. I did a little demo a few weeks back, and um, I stippled it all over. And the more you do it, the more weathered it becomes. In fact, I'll just bring it over. So yeah, I'll just make this single layout, and you see how effective it is. So after I'd done that in the ends and both sides and along the rail there, where all the grunge would gather, what I then did was I took one of my pastel crayons, it's around here somewhere, and what I do with the pastel crayons is I scrape off the powder and I mix it with baby powder, and that allows you to put it on smoothly. Now it just depends what kind of an effect you want to get. So I did that using a cotton pad called a weevil. But the other way you can do it is you pick up a small brush and you just lift up the powder and apply it with a small brush, and it's very, very effective. And you can see on there, if you look closely enough, you would see you can see areas where it's stained. It's not just the rust; it's stained, and that was done with the powder. And then, of course, what I did was I I sealed it all with a fixative, right? Sealed it, and that way nothing would rub off. And it's important, maybe wear a pair of gloves just to make sure you don't get your fingerprints all over it. And that's an easy way to do weathering on any local. Just buy some of those hard chalk pastel crayons and get a few burnt umber, dark brown, black, grey, white, and you can mix up whatever you want. And then just apply it with a nice soft brush, and you'll get it done. And that way, and then seal it, of course. And the thing is, you can apply it, seal it, and if excuse me, if you apply more over the top of that and seal it again, it'll be darker. So you can build it up in layers, and that way, you won't overdo it. You can put it on first, look at it, see if it's okay. If you don't like it, you can blow it off or wipe it off and start again. It's not like using paint on it or an airbrush. Just use the chalk and gradually build up, or take something that's wrecked, let's say, and weather it. and that's a good way to practice. So I was reading an article about automation in trains, and in fact, I think Jenny spoke about it in her show today, and that is in some of these DMUs, you could bring the train into the station, and the doors would slide open. Now that would be very cool. I don't think that's something that's very far away. That's something that could probably be on the horizon. Because, as I said, I did read an article about it, and obviously the person who wrote the article has been looking at it in a highly detailed level. So, John, where are you located? It's always good to know where people are, because you never know when you're going to be traveling. You can always make arrangements to hook up, or maybe they get access to a store that you don't, and equipment that you're looking for, that kind of stuff. So, what else? Yeah, I got, there's, just show you the little, it's a nice little tree. Oh, Rhode Island, yeah, John, I remember you'd mentioned that. Yeah. Nice little tree. Easy to make. Now, I don't know if you are familiar with Boomer's diorama. Originally from Louisiana. Wow. That's interesting. It's always interesting when you meet people from other places, because somehow there's a connection. Now, I'll cite two connections here about Louisiana, probably three. One is I worked in the shipyards in Scotland before I came to Canada, and the shipyard was bought by a company from Houston, Texas. It was called Marathon, and they had a shipyard in Brownsville. But a couple of the bosses that came over were from Louisiana. So there's the plumber. Yeah, the plumber 33. Good of you to drop by. And remember, it's Charlie, but the handle for the station is Partickhill. But that's okay. I'm just talking with John, Mystic Railroad, about Louisiana. Okay, so not really sure what goes on here sometimes. Anyway, the other thing about Louisiana, my daughter and her fiance live in LA, and they have a friend called Derek, and he's from Louisiana. And then in Louisiana, during the American Civil War, the British try to break through the American Navy's blockade. And I think there was a Scottish settlement in Louisiana around about that time in the 1700s. So you never know, right? You'll always bump into somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who think they know you. That's the way it goes, right? And it's happened to me on many occasions when I'm traveling. Charlie Ward, no, just Charlie, right? You were in New Orleans for 23 years. Yeah, I've not made it down there. Not quite sure why I haven't been there yet, but it's on my list. In fact, we're going to be in Tampa for January and LA for February, and we're looking for maybe another place to go to for a week. So who knows? As long as it's fairly warm and not snowing in the bayou, yeah, an interesting place. You never know. So, Plumber, are you Steve? Is that what it is? Mystic John said, Steve, howdy. No, the tree isn't super tree, it's polyfiber. Nice material. And you can do different things with it, right? Put it on, spray it your color type thing, add a bit of flock, some leaves, and I've done sort of different type of trees. I'll just you can see those trees over there. These ones, yeah. So they're from the garden. What I'll do is there are flowers out there in the garden that will dry out in the winter, and I'll break them off and bring them inside, dry them out, and then spray them, and then add flock to them. And it's a nice effect. So you can make your own designs up, and see there's some over there. You can see. You can do just about anything. And as I've said to other people, Sam, in the winter when the water is minus 1,000 degrees, well, that's pretty cool. The coldest area I've been in was in Manitoba in the winter, and it was minus 45 Celsius. It was horrible. Derail Darrell. Well, good evening, Derail. Where are you? So, yeah, you'll always find something interesting. And you think about model railways, model railroads. there are probably many more people out there have it as a hobby than what you would imagine. And I know that in the States, it is very, very big. And it is somewhat here in Canada, but it doesn't compare with what goes on in the US in terms of big shows that they have down there. Yeah, I hate the cold too. Right? That's why we've become sort of snowbirds, right? Find a place down south for a couple of months to hide out. So, and my wife would be away for the whole winter if she had her way. Um, yeah, so model railroads, it's very interesting because you get into, as we all know, making all kinds of stuff. Um, you know, taking a piece of foam, carving it, painting it. I'll just put that on the, something that simple. It's very effective. The papers that you can get to do buildings with is amazing. And I'll show you my, if I can bring this over, I'll show you there's the tenement building. This one here. So the story behind that is I lived in a building like that. It was probably constructed in the mid to late 1800s in Glasgow, especially down near the river where the shipyards were and the engineering works. And they needed mass housing for the workers. Now, in retrospect, they were slums. But having said that, that's just the way it was. So I've tried to recreate what I remember it being like. And, I found some data on it, engineering or architectural dimensions. And I was able to build this out of cardboard, that grey cardboard. And the roof was just strips of black paper that I glued up, stained, etc. And here is an example of the grey cardboard, right? Covered with individual pieces of corrugated papers. Eagle Creek, good evening. So how's it going over there? Are you at work too, or what's happening? How's the mill? So in the hobby, there's lots to learn. I'm not an expert in anything really. I know something about a lot of things. But one thing I found in my professional life was if I didn't know the answer, I knew the person who did. And that was the secret to success on many projects that had many engineering software 3D modeling problems. Still using the space heater. Oh my God, like how warm was it or how cold was it? And well, of course, you're if you're in Rhode Island, I guess you get hit by those storms, so it might have been a bit chilly. That's my wife. I never know the answer. Yeah. So I've worked in a number of industries over the years. And for the last 20, 25 years of my career, I worked in mineral mining processing. And we design smelting furnaces for copper, lead, zinc, platinum, palladium, all of that kind of stuff, all over the world. And eventually we'd moved into 3D modeling. And I got the opportunity to go to Winnipeg, where it was minus 45 in the winter, to look after the rolling out of a new piece of software and become troubleshooter, driver of the initiative, all that kind of stuff. And basically what it allowed us to do was we used this software by a company called Bentley, who are based in Exton, Pennsylvania, which is just outside of Philadelphia. And we'd been using their product MicroStation and associated software to build models. But they came up with this new software that enabled you to build the concrete foundations, let's say, and then model in each and every piece of rebar. Now, this was a hydroelectric generating station. In other words, a dam. That was the project. And we had calculated there was 300,000 cubic meters of concrete and 20,000 tonnes of rebar. And all of that was modelled. Oh, derail Darrell. I'm just outside Toronto, just to the north of Toronto. I say I'm in Toronto because the town I'm actually in is Richmond Hill, and most people wouldn't know where it is. I don't know if it's always sunny in Philadelphia, but it's a nice city in places. Let's put it that way. Anyway, so this software allowed the modelers to go into their concrete model and then say, I want to place 15 bars at 50 millimeter spaces. And then they hit the button, basically, and then it runs the rebar out. But what you have to do is tell the software, I want it to have 50 of a cover at the top, 75 of a cover at the bottom, 75 on the face, and I want it a 90-degree bend with a leg of 100. That kind of data. And then what we were able to do, and this is where I come in, I would go into the database and check to see that all the rebar was going in correctly. And I could do a printout and get a report of, excuse me, let's say for one specific area. And then I could read this report and it would tell me that, yeah, there is X number of pieces of rebar with this tag number. So the tag number was automatically generated when you placed it into the model in the database, and I could search for that tag number, and I could find it anywhere in the system. And when it went to the site, I could find it. I could walk there and find it and scan it and make sure it was the right one. And then I could tell the foreman, okay, see this tag number here, and I could show him it on the model in the laptop, and I'd say, it's got to go there. So it was really very innovative. And but it was pretty stressful because you're up against time, and the client wants things done on time, and they're always looking for reports and explanations. So an 8-hour drive from Rhode Island. Yeah, maybe 10 hours. I think I told you before, I drove through Rhode Island. I think I was on our way to the Outer Banks and sort of did a detour. Or Kenny, we're out that neck of the woods anyway for a couple of weeks, going around. Providence, yeah, we drove through Providence. So, well, not everybody's like me up here because, of course, I'm Scottish. I came here from Glasgow, and that's why I have the accent. And I'd say that, well, Toronto is very cosmopolitan, let's say that. But you could get dropped in downtown Toronto and you could be in any sort of North American city. It's clean, it's relatively safe. You hear about the odd shooting about a specific section of the community, but it doesn't affect us, right? So it's a safe, clean city. It's got a lot to offer. And for any Americans coming up here, it's great because it's like 30 cents on the dollar cheaper. I mean, think about it. When I go down there in the winter, it costs me 35, 37 cents more for every dollar that I am thinking I'm spending. So, yeah, it's a cheap vacation for you up here, that's for sure. We're complaining because the price of gas or petrol is $1.65 a litre. No, there's 4 litres to the gallon, so you can work out the math. Yeah, so. All right, Daryl, good of you to drop by. We'll see you next time. I had 6 Rhode Islands Reds once. Are those beers? Yeah, good night, Daryl. Life in the fast lane. Yeah, so you like the sound of that, Charlie? Was that the sound of the software or the sound of Toronto? Right. Either or. Anyway, yeah, another reason why I came on here this evening was I just want to practice my presentation because I've had problems in the past with cameras, with audio, and it's always a pain in the backside trying to do a broadcast, and you're getting echoes up your yang and that type of stuff. So I'm trying to work out all those little problems. Yeah, a couple of bucks more expensive than here. And where is that? What would be what would be a couple of bucks more expensive? Chickens. Oh, I see. Chickens to compete with the turkeys. Oh, very good. In Scotland, we often had a big chicken for Christmas dinner as opposed to a turkey. I don't recall why that was. Just that I think chickens were more available. I think that's all it was. Right. Oh well, dollar conversion when you come up here, much cheaper. Oh my God, yeah, much cheaper. Um, so if something was $1 here, you'd be paying 70 cents of your own money. That's how it works. So yeah, as I say, practice makes perfect in many things, and there's a lot of stuff going on with Streamyard. Well, how did I end up in Toronto? Um, well, I was working in the shipyards, and at that time, there was a number of shipyards on the river, and we were in financial trouble, and the government wouldn't support the continuance of supplementing the business. So they basically forced all but two of them to close. And I started looking for a job elsewhere. And I thought about South Africa, decided against it. I thought Australia because I had in New Zealand, I knew people there, but it's too far away. And then Canada, yeah, Canada's not that far away. And I saw an ad for a ship draftsman in Canada, north of Toronto, and I applied for it and got the job. So I was up there for a couple of years, and it didn't work out, and I moved south towards Toronto, and been here ever since. Worked in a few different industries, as I said, to just turn my hand to whatever it was, and then eventually got my groove. Let's say, yeah. Echoes are frustrating. I hear that. Yeah. Um, yeah. You always got to make sure that you've got the camera muted. Now, everybody forgets, or some people forget, there's a mic in the camera. So you got to make sure that's muted. And that the mic in the laptop, well, you need the mic in the laptop because in this case, I'm speaking through that. But sometimes I will add a microphone to the system. But there again, you got to be really careful in your setup. I've got a blue Yeti. I'll just show you. Like, there's my blue Yeti. That's a nice unit. But once again, you got to be careful in setting it up. Now, I do use that. There's another room back there where I've got another older computer and a lot of my art stuff in there. And my daughter's fiance, okay, Mark, we'll catch you later. Have a good evening. Take care and be safe. Yeah. So his dad buys Generation 1 Camaros. more often than not from the US, and he rebuilds them. So he asked me if we could do a show on YouTube, and I said, yeah, sure, I'll set it up, we'll do it. And I forget the military didn't, but troop landing craft. Oh yeah, I know that. And they also built the Liberty ships, Liberty vessels, like cargo vessels. But the problem, when like welding was a new technology at that time, and some of the first ones that were crossing the Atlantic broke their backs in heavy seas. But they got that solved, and that was very unfortunate. The Yetis, yeah. Anyway, so the boy's father rebuilds these Camaros. So I set up a show, and we'd do it every other week. And he got a lot of knowledge about tagging in cars. So he can go into a car and search it, look at every item in that car, every component, and he'll tell you if it's original or not. Everything that he rebuilds is original. He sources every piece that's missing and buys them mostly from the States and rebuilds them. So he's on about his 11th or 12th Camaro, and he's got 2 or 3 on the go right now. I was down with him at the guy who's doing the body work, did the undercoat, and we dropped in the differential and the engine and the wheels. It was really quite an experience to do that. So, yeah. Anyway, before I came over here, I worked on, the first one I worked on was the QE2, the big liner. And then I worked on oil rigs and bulk carriers and a couple of train and vehicle ferries. One of them crossed between the North and South Island in New Zealand. And at that point, I had applied to the New Zealand government for a job, thinking, yeah, I should be able to get a job there. And I've got friends down there. And I was telling the marine engineer for the ship, for the ferry, and he said, well, if you get your paperwork through, you can come with us on the maiden voyage. Well, that never happened. And a month or 2 later, whatever it was, I got a message from my friend in Wellington, New Zealand, with a newspaper clipping saying they had a fire on board the ferry. It was put out, but they did have a fire. So that would have been quite an experience, in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Who knows? Yeah, anyway. Yeah, the QE2. No, that's the Queen Mary. I've been on that. That's if you get the chance to go there, that's an interesting tour because they removed most of the engine works, but they've got some of it in there, and you can get down to see it. And they've got all these photographs of the shipyard. So I was looking at them in great detail because when I was an apprentice, I worked with older guys who were they were beyond retirement age, working on the construction of the QE2, and they had started out on the Queen Elizabeth and the Queen Mary, and were finishing up their career. So the Queen Elizabeth sank in Hong Kong Harbour. It was purchased when it was put out of service. It was purchased by a group in Hong Kong. They were going to turn it into some kind of university with accommodation, and it went mysteriously on fire in Hong Kong Harbour. There was multiple fires going on at the same time, unfortunately, it capsized and it sank, and it lay derelict there for the longest time. And we were in Hong Kong a number of years ago on another cruise, and I went looking for it. Went to the Maritime Museum, but by that time they had removed everything that was removable by that time, and there was no evidence that the ship was there. Yeah, I get lots of stories. It kind of gets sidetracked from the model railways, because you know what happens. You just get chatting about stuff, and then people ask you questions. So anyway, guys, look, I'm going to call it an evening because it's probably getting close to the witching hour. And it's been interesting chatting with you all. And you know where to come next time, and you know which questions to ask. Because I always try and have a story for everybody. So if you're looking for the Camaro thing, have a look for how to rebuild your Generation 1 Camaro, or the Pete and Charlie show, and you'll find us. I'm going to start doing that again in a couple of weeks when we go back down to check out the status of the Camaro that's being reconstructed. Anyway, lads, I'm going to go now. It was great speaking with you. It's a good laugh and a bit of banter, and we'll see you again next time. Remember to give me the big thumbs up. You know how it works. Cheers.